Hello everyone, this is Jason from Primetime Aquatics, and in this video we got something super cool to show you. You see that tank right there? That tank used to house all of our electric fluid car, which have since moved in over there into the 125. The last two that were there were a pair. They weren't breeding for us anymore, so we moved them into the 125. We're going to do something in this 40 gallon that I've wanted to do for a long time, a different type of scape for some cool fish that we already have. Hope you enjoy the video. As I mentioned, this is the 40 gallon breeder. The first thing we got to do, Luke did an awesome job of getting all the substrate out, the fish out, all the decorations. We're going to clean it up just a little bit before we get started on the new scape. All right, everyone, so step one is we've got our tank as cleaned out as I need it to be. Step two is we are going to add this thing. This is a background that we purchased from Universal Rocks. I've never used a background like this before, but it's something I always wanted to try, so I think it's going to be pretty cool. There we go. And I'm interested to see how it looks. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use this aquarium safe clear silicone to silicone the ends into the tank. Between that and having rocks pushed up against this thing, I'm pretty sure it's not going to go anywhere, but that's our plan. That's what we're going to do, and hopefully once we get this thing in, I'm going to let it dry overnight. I'm going to get this in, I'm going to get the sand in, I'm going to push the rocks up against the whole thing, let it dry, and then we're going to be able to put the finishing touches on this scape and get the fish in, and I'm really excited to see what this looks like. All right, everyone, so the background is in. I'm super excited about the way it's turning out so far. I think it's going to look even better once, obviously, we get everything else in. But it's super important, if you ever order something like this, make sure you use the inside dimensions of your fish tank in terms of the length and the height. And because I measured it really, really closely, and they did a good job of cutting it, it is really wedged in there pretty tight. I used the silicone just on the edges to make sure that this thing stays in. I'm going to put sand in there right now. We're going to get the rocks in, but then everything else is going to have to wait. I want to give this 24 hours to cure just to make sure we don't have any issues, but I don't expect to see a lot of problems because of the way this thing is really wedged in there. So let's go ahead, get the sand in, let's get the rocks in and see what it looks like. And now we get to the highly satisfying part of adding the rest of the aquascape. All right, everyone, so this is the 40-gallon breeder, the redo. I think it's come a long way since we had the electric blue car in here. It was set up as a breeding tank for them, a community tank that turned into a breeding tank. And I think it was just time to get those fish into a larger tank. And I wanted to set this up really for a couple reasons. One, our multi-tank, our 50-gallon lowboy tank, it's one of my favorite tanks in all the fish room with one of my favorite fish. And I started thinking more and more and more about it. This is the only tank I have with these fish. If something happens to this tank, they're all gonna go. And I just didn't want that to happen. And so what I did, because we have the space, is I wanted to move a small group of those fish into a second backup tank. That way, if something happens to one of the tanks, I still have the other one. So I wanted to use this 40-gallon breeder for that purpose. Now, as I started to think about it, I'm thinking, okay, how do I want to set this up? Do I want it to look nice, or do I just want it to be a breeding tank and just kind of let it go that way? And I decided I really wanted both. And so what we did is a couple things. One, we added the Universal Rocks background. Now, these are expensive backgrounds. They're somewhere in the neighborhood. I think this particular one for this tank probably cost the neighborhood of $160 to $180. And for some of you, you're like, wow, time out. That's more than the tank and possibly the light and maybe even some decorations and some fish to go in the tank. And you're absolutely correct. This is not a cheap background. It is very, very well made. I will say that. The colors look amazing. They look very lifelike. This thing took me all of about 20 seconds to install, and it's really cool looking. Now, what we're going to do in the future is I've actually made some of these my own. I've made these myself in another tank in a 20-gallon, but I want to do another one just to kind of show you how I make them. It's not going to look like this. I can tell you that right now. I don't have that skill set. However, it's going to be far cheaper, and so that video will be coming out at some point when we have the time. I really need to wait for the weather to get a little bit nicer because some of what I need to do, I want to do outside. But I will do another background, my own. But this is really cool. I will put their information down in the description below if you want to check them out. Like I said, this was expensive. We have another video coming up probably next week or the week after where I have a much less expensive background from them that's going to go on a 20-gallon. It's not quite as three-dimensional, but still looks really cool. So I'm going to try that. But I'm really excited about having this tank set up. What we did is, again, kept it really simple. We've got the universal background. We have the sand. The sand is a mix of a couple different sands. It is all carob sea, and it is a mix of the carob sea naturals and the African cichlid mix. So that's what's in here. We've done videos. In fact, we just recently did a video on what we feel are some of the best sands and why. I will put that up in the upper right-hand corner as well as in the description below. You could check that out. But the carob sea sands I really, really like quite a bit. I had Joanna go ahead and put the rocks in. These rocks just came from a local landscaping place. Again, I just did a video on where to find cheap rocks. I'll put that in the description below as well. But that's where they came from. So if you ever wonder, okay, well, where do you get these less expensive rocks? Give me some examples of what they look like. They look like this. I think they fit in pretty well with the aquascape. You can see we've just got the one sponge filter. When we took this tank apart, we actually had two sponge filters in here, but really the second one was in case we wanted a backup for another tank. But we're getting to a point where we don't have a lot of space for more tanks, and we have plenty of sponge filters that we can transfer from one tank to another. So I just went with the one sponge filter. We have a dozen multis in here right now, Neolamprologus multifasciatus. By the way, if you want to learn more information about these particular fish or shell dwellers in general, I will put links down in the description below. We've done species profiles on these fish, how to breed them. We've bred at this point thousands of them. I've talked about how to set up a shell dweller tank. I'll put that video down there as well. We left the light the same. The light is a Phoenix Stingray light. I like the lights. They're a nice mid-level light. Again, I've done videos on lights. I've done videos on a lot of things, I guess, over time, and I'll put that down in the description below. But this is the setup, and I expect, hopefully, as long as Luke went ahead and did what I asked, and that was pull out roughly 6 males and 6 females, and I think he got pretty close. We're going to go ahead and hopefully start seeing some of these fish breed. It usually takes them a little while to kind of settle in. You know, I get that question a lot. Hey, I just got a half a dozen multis, put them in a tank. When can I expect to see fry? Well, one, they've got to be the right size. And for the most part, these fish are of the appropriate size. We've got full-grown males in here somewhere, close to that 2-inch range. The females are probably, not probably, they're a little bit smaller. And I think we have fish, adult fish in here that should start populating the tank relatively soon once they get settled in. They have to get their territories kind of settled in as well. You can see some of the fish are kind of, you know, when we first put them in, they were all congregating right around this area right here. And so now they're going to start spreading out. They're going to start moving the sand around pretty soon. This is going to be the last time we ever see this tank this well put together, or at least at this level, because they're going to start moving sand. They're going to start piling it up everywhere. They're going to start burying their shells. They're going to start digging around the rocks and make the tank their own. And if you've got shell dwellers, you just have to be willing to accept that. I love these fish. I love their personalities. I love their community dynamics. So this is the tank. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how this moves along. We'll give you updates as it progresses, as we start to see fry. Again, I will do a background video where I do it myself. We'll save considerable amount of money, but this is a cool background if you want to check them out in the description below. It's not a sponsored video or anything like that. I just wanted to go ahead, and I've never done it before. So I wanted to put something in there that I've never done before. I think it looks pretty cool. I hope you think so too. And if you found this video useful, share, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.